Things are very different now. But the question remains, is it a startup or is it a scale-up? Because entrepreneurship is now connected with startup when it should be much more connected with a scale-up. What's changed in those 26 years is that we have made it much easier to start a company, but it's much more difficult than ever to scale one. The OECD definition of a scale-up is a company that grows for 3 consecutive years by more than 20%. And that is fine because most companies don't even get over 10 people. So the scale-up is this company that's massively growing really quickly. The issue, of course, is that in a startup, everyone starts from the same point. Everyone starts from zero. But in a scale-up, we start from a later point. The key phrase that we need to start talking about is the phrase product market fit. The interesting part about the product market fit is that any entrepreneur is adding and subtracting features to a product, and they're adding and subtracting the market they are addressing. But when exactly do you have eliminated the things you need to eliminate and added the things you need to add at the product side? And also, are you addressing the right people on the market side? When you are looking to try and find a product market fit, what you need to do is have all these questions resolved through experimentation. Only then, when you know our product solves a problem for women over 40 with a dog who like Adidas sneakers, do you then start to talk about growth. This is segmentation. Companies scale because they allow intimacy at scale. There's a saying that says, even when you know something is working with 100 people, then you have to get it working at 1,000 people, at 5,000 people, at 10,000 people. Product design is all about eliminating, and that's why it's counterintuitive. Rather than adding things, you need to take them away. There's a favorite line from The Little Prince, a children's book, which says, perfection in design is achieved not when you've added everything, but when you've taken everything away. It's funny when we look at the Magnificent Seven, companies like Google, Apple, Amazon, they actually really only have one big product and a lot of sub-products. So you don't want to have too many products. In fact, you want to have one big product. So simplicity scales, complexity kills. The next part then is operations. And operations is about investing in technology. There's huge discussion about why American builds these trillion-dollar companies and even why China builds extremely large companies. Good technology allows you to get good information. And if you have good information, it's quite easy to run a company. The next thing is culture. All companies have a culture. The question is whether you have designed it or whether you've something that has let it happen. What kind of a culture do you have? Is a culture where you're customer-centric? You do absolutely everything you can in order to make the customer happy. Or maybe some companies are less customer-centric. But whatever it is, you have to have made a decision about which of those things apply. Similarly with employees.
We can stop them.
Do you want to bring in employees? Get as much out of them as possible and let.
Thank you so much, the technical team. And now it's time for diving into this wonderful session. And first, for that, I would request all the esteemed panelists, Mr. Harsh Pamnani ji, with Satish Jha ji, and our very own Rashmi ji, to please come on the stage for the book launch. And I will also request the co-founder of the society, co-founder member of the society, I'm sorry, Mr. Brigadier Sanjay Agrawal ji, to please come on the stage for the book launch ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause.
Please remember the word aaj, huh? Satish ji jo hai, every word counts.
Ladies and gentlemen, now I would take this opportunity to introduce this book to you, starting with a thought of Jeff Bezos, which is, your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. Now we dive into one of the most crucial yet challenging aspects of music. most crucial yet challenging aspects of entrepreneurship, branding, and scaling up startups. We begin with the launch of a book that every aspiring entrepreneur, marketer, and business leader should read. From Unknown to Unforgettable by Harsh Pamnani. About the book, building a great product is only half the battle. Making it memorable is what truly defines success. In From Unknown to Unforgettable, Harsh Pamnani explores how some of the most iconic Indian startups transformed from mere ideas into brands that resonate with millions. Through real-life case studies, branding insights, and practical strategies, this book deciphers the key elements that make brands stand out in crowded markets. It answers questions like, how do startups create compelling brand identity? What strategies help companies scale from niche to mainstream? With engaging storytelling and practical lessons, From Unknown to Unforgettable is a guide for entrepreneurs looking to turn their vision into brand that lasts. And now, let's unveil this insightful book. Session which is going to start is branding and scaling up of the startups. With the launch of this book, we now shift to a conversation that every entrepreneur, investor, and business leader will find invaluable. About the panelists, to start the discussion, Harsh Pamnani ji, an acclaimed brand strategist and author From Unknown to Unforgettable. Harsh Pamnani ji has spent years analyzing how brands are built and sustained. His insights on brand positioning, storytelling, and market differentiation have guided numerous startups towards success. Satish Jha, a veteran entrepreneur, investor, and thought leader. Satish Jha ji brings a wealth of experience in scaling up business and navigating startup growth challenges. His expertise in business strategy, innovation, and leadership will provide valuable perspectives on what it takes for startups to scale. And last but not the least, our very own moderator, Rashmi ji, a corporate HR head, turned into an entrepreneur in 2005. Rashmi Bhargava is a CEO of De Novo Group, one of the largest HR consulting firms in central India, working with more than 14 sectors of industries. Also a leadership coach, lifestyle and happiness coach, felicitator, motivator, and international speaker. She has been awarded various awards as the Best Outstanding Women Trainer, Super Achievers Award by Indira Group, the Top 10 Thinkers Award by MTC, Yes Bank's Rana Kapoor FAPS Award for Women Entrepreneur 2016, International Appreciation Award by Sweep. After a senior Cambridge, she graduated in English Literature from Lady Shri Ram College, New Delhi. A huge round of applause for our panelists today. And now let's find out with our esteemed panel. Please join me in welcoming Harsh Pamnani ji, Satish Jha ji, and Rashmi Bhargava ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
And a big wow. Wow, wow, wow. I think we've got Nykaa, we've got Meesho, we've got Urban Company, we've got Boat, we've got Ola, we've got Big Basket, and the list goes on. And startup is the new buzz. Agreed, everybody? So, before we go further, I want all my esteemed people sitting across to close their eyes and think about a beautiful picture. Picture of the future. We have a lot of young people here. Open your eyes. Was the picture big or small? Wonderful. And was the picture black and white or colored? Wow, wow. Very simple exercise, but large connotations. We all have our visions and we all think about our future. And how many of you here are thinking about the future? And how many of you are thinking about a startup? Wow, so many. I think India is going to do well. Wonderful, wonderful. You know, we are very, very fortunate to have these two gentlemen with us. Mr. Jha, he's a mentor. He's a startup mentor. He's a financier. He invests and he guides. So I think we should make the best of him being, and he's come all the way from Boston to guide us. Let's give him a big. Mr. Pamnani, just imagine, not one or two or three. This is his 4th bestseller. Wonderful. Congratulations for that. I think it's time to start with you. Let me, you know, with so many, but before that, there are 2 good news before I start with both of them. One is, anybody saw yesterday's budget? What was it towards the startups? 10,000 crores have been allocated for the development of startups. That's a good number. And one very good news, no income tax to startups till 2030. I think we should clap for the government. And second good news, in between the session, we are going to have some quizzes, some questions, and whoever gives the correct answer gets something from us. So now, Mr. Jha, can we start? Just wanted to check with so many unicorns, I think more than 100, and so many startups coming up. I still feel there's a lot of gap happening. Why is that so? Why are we unable to make that impact in the world scenario?
Thank you very much. First, let's be clear. The next decade will be powered by startups. And that is a fact that we have begun to recognize as a government, as a society, as a business. Is becoming common. And people, when I ask people, would you like your children to be IAS or what? They say we'd like them to start a startup, be journalists, be anything else but IAS. That's a great start. Because so far, all our energies have been in becoming an IAS. A whole nation is geared around that. But today, there is a culture ecosystem emerging where it's being seen that starting a startup is a very credible thing to do. Imagine 25 years back, how many parents would have accepted anyone going to sports? Right? Today, the richest earners in the country are from sports. And they're earning the way American sportsmen earn. Our highest earnings are in sports and entertainment as of today. As people who do not have investments, I'm not talking about businessmen. Outside of businessmen, highest earnings are there. But higher earnings are in the startups. So that message should go out. And having said that, I'm going to respond to what Rashmi ji said. Our startups are still at a very early stage of starting up. US began the journey 50 years back. We began the journey 25 years later. So in 25 years, if you have 100 unicorns, but then we are a nation 4 times the size of America in population. Our youth are 4 times size. Every year, 30 million children are born, approximately 25 to 30 million, and they become the crop of that year, which is 4 or 5 times more than America's. So we should have more startups, also because, not the population size, because you can't create as many jobs in an economy which is at best being run by 8 to 10% people in terms of business and everything else. So we need startups. What is a startup? In the US context, it's something when you start a business at the cusp, at the frontiers of what is already happening. You start a company which is doing something which has never happened before. That's a startup. In our context, a startup is something you start by looking at what others have done, a model which already established, a framework established, so you start with lower risk. but your context is local. Locally, can you make something happen which has already happened elsewhere? So our startups are different. So one reason for not having the kind of traction or force that you talk about is that our context is different. We are picking up ideas from others. These are not the ideas which we grew up with. We don't have that kind of passion. But some of the who did that job, like good friends, my young friends like Sanjeev Pichchandani, he not only did one, he did multiple unicorns. Harsh talks about some multiple unicorns, some people who did that, 2, 3, 4. So they figured out something about how to make companies successful and how to repeat it. It's not easy. Doing more than one. In the US, you'll find quite a few, but even here we have some. But all those companies are such, they haven't created new product or new service. They're still borrowing the ideas and working on them. One company I do recall is now called Zopper. And the two IIT-IIM boys came to me and pushed me, and I agreed to help them. And they made me the chairman, and 39 months later, they were acquired for $500 million, starting with 100,000 rupees. In 39 months, because they worked very, very hard. The model they created was ahead of what American models were. That model was adopted by Amazon later on. But that was one exception, I would say, partly because I pushed them. If you do anything somebody has done, I'm not supporting you. So slowly it began happening. It was very tough, not easy, but they did it. And the way they did that, probably you will write a story on them someday. Having said that, so that's where we are. Our ecosystem is new. Our ecosystem is not mature. Our ecosystem is still evolving, and we are not doing anything at the cusp of where you can say ocean meets the sky yet.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Harsh, you specialize in brand building, and that also through storytelling. And have worked for ranges. He's worked for, variety of companies like unicorn startups like First Cry, to think tanks like World Bank, to, I think, to corporates like Deloitte and Cognizant. What made you think branding is important? And of course, compelling you to leave your computer engineering job? I think everybody would love to know about that.
Sure. So thank you, ma'am, for asking that question. So credit of making me computer engineer goes to Bhopal. I had scored only 55% marks in 12th class. Didn't know what to do in life, and came from a small town. So career prospects were very limited. But one of my cousins had scored top 20 rank in engineering, and at that time counseling used to happen in Bhopal. So as I had nothing to do, he brought me along with him in the counseling. There I met the toppers of engineering, top 50 rankers, got to know about their hard work, got to know about their dreams, and somewhere I also got a dream that what I will do with 55% marks in 12th class, but if I work hard, I can become someone like them to have a good career. Took 1 year drop, prepared for engineering, got a decent rank, started my computer engineering at IIT DAVV in Indore. And from there the journey started, worked with brands like HSBC and Deloitte, both in India and the US. And during this phase, I became curious to understand how come some entrepreneurs are able to create great brands while many struggle to survive. So to satisfy my curiosity, I used to attend sessions when I was in the US, to attend sessions at NYU, Columbia, or when I was in India, attend sessions at IIT, where entrepreneurs used to come and talk about their journeys. And I also felt that doing an MBA will make me someone who will contribute to create maybe one day iconic Made in India brand. So I went to XLRI, did my MBA specializing in marketing, and from the journey as a marketer started, worked with 2 unicorn startups, iCertis and First Cry, worked with corporates like Cognizant, and innovation campuses like T-Hub and all on the branding aspect. And I've contributed in some way to create some of the leading brands in India.
Perfect. I think tremendous work done. So, Harsh, your portfolio also includes stories of, India's prominent startup brands like Big Basket, Book My Show, Paperboat, Shadi.com. Shadiyan karani hai nahi? into their brand building and kind of challenges. I think all of us would like to know what kind of challenges you faced and how you overcame those challenges. And what was the best success story during all this tenure?
Sure. Thank you again for asking that question. So I always believed in doing 100% primary research. So for that, I had to meet the founders. And if I have to know the journeys of iconic brands, I have to meet the iconic founders who have very busy schedule. So why they will give me the time. So getting the time was the biggest challenge in this whole journey. So I used to attend the conferences where people like Ashish Hemrajani of Book My Show or Anupam Mittal of Shadi.com are giving the keynote speeches and all, and used to enter into their rooms by doing all the tips and tricks, request them to give me their time. And I also rehearsed my pitch to convince them. Now the pitch was, Indian education system still teaches stories of American brands because a lot of the literature comes from American authors and Harvard Business Review case studies. India and America are two very different markets. I think students should know how you created your brand in such a competitive market, evolving India, where customers are different, competition is different. I also told them that media writes what you are doing. I want to write about why and how. That will give the context to the people. I also used an analogy to convince them, saying that cricket has two popular people, Sachin Tendulkar and Harsha Bhogle. Sachin goes and plays in the field. Harsha doesn't play, but he writes about the game and the players' strategies. So,
Wonderful.
in my eyes, you are like the Sachins of the business world, and I want to be like the Harsha of the business world. So please give me a chance, and many of them agreed.
Beautiful. बहुत बढ़िया. Now, Mr. Jha, in India there are enough competitors offering the same product. Don't audience you agree? Competition बहुत है, लोग बहुत हैं. If you want to be noticed and successful, you actually need to be innovative to survive. So what is your take on that?
You see, when the competition is great, what happens is somebody in a heavily competitive market is going to create something which will finally lead. Now, that can happen for some external reasons as well. Without the externality being there, probably they will keep doing the same thing and compete for the very small pie. The question is, how do you turn this, make the pie bigger? And for instance, think of it this way.
Can anybody help with this?
Hello. So Apple was not in the business of making phones. But when it came in the business of making phones, it made iPhone. What happened to the market? Now, iPhone is the most talked about phone, and had Google not taken the initiative to create Android and gone on to create Android phones, which could be open sourced, and therefore Samsung got into play, Apple would have been the king. Even now, it says the most valuable, one of the most valuable companies in the world. Samsung, despite everything, doesn't quite compare there because they created something totally new, and whatever they were doing, they were copying. So, any market, someone has to think from outside the box, try to understand the market space, and the question is, does it happen just because somebody wants to know? Somebody has the capacity to do that. Steve Jobs had that capacity. Jobs was the person who was intolerant, very difficult to work with, but he was fastidious about design, simplicity of design. Put the company's background as such. We, at the same time, what were we doing? We had some companies, they were getting some phones made in China, and the same phone, just white labeling it, and that's what we are doing. So from there to creating Apple's phone is about 10 generations gap. So that is, now you think everybody in America could do that? No. But did anybody else, in America, try to create phones? No, I also. So in other words, we are walking into a space which is easy for us. We make easier choices. We make traders' choices. A trader's choice is different from innovator's choice. So we have to start understanding that, and as long as we I'll take you back to 1990s, when information technology was becoming a buzzword, and I was a CIO with Roche Worldwide, and my budget was 3 times the revenue of TCS, and my complexity was huge, and I was learning at a very different pace at the point in time. So when I was interviewed by somebody in India, I said, Indian ecosystem is not ready in IT sector. The established businesses cannot create one, and the new, those who can create, they will grow up and probably 25 years later will be there. Even today, the best of us are still 6 generations behind the global ecosystem and technology. Never forget, the entire IT business of India is $250 billion. Now see the perspective. Trump just announced $500 billion for AI infrastructure this year. Just one thing, AI infrastructure. Industry is about $3 trillion today. Our contribution is $250 billion. And we say, many companies in America have more than $250 billion of revenue. But and we say we are technology savvy. So similarly, in any market with a lot of competitors, you can take a trader's view, you can take innovator's view. So we haven't taken innovator's view yet. We are moving in that direction. So we are evolving. Ecosystem will be built over a period of time. It hasn't happened yet. It will happen. It will take a little more time. We are moving in that direction. So the good thing is, 100 unicorns tell us that we are growing up. अभी हमने primary school pass कर लिया है, middle school में आ गए, हम भी graduation कर लेंगे. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. The key, I think, for all the people who want to really start a startup is you have to think out of the box. That's what I could gather from your... Now, Harsh, you are the author of best-selling book series, Booming Brands, and the national best-selling Booming Digital Stars. Your latest book, From Unknown to Unforgettable, has been described as a masterclass in startup branding by Deep Kalra, and he's, I think, the founder and chairman of Make My Trip. Why did he say so? And we would love to hear from you.
Sure. So I have to take you in the little backside of when this journey started. Booming Brands was the first book. Then Booming Brands Volume 2 came, in which I covered the journeys of new age Indian brands. And parallelly, because I was writing something new that Indian students were liking in business schools, I had created a course on startup branding at MICA Ahmedabad, which was a highly rated course. And during this phase also, we all passed through COVID 2020, 2021 and all. And that was the phase when Bollywood was not working, cricket was not working, only source of entertainment for people was YouTube. And one of my friends gave me a very valuable advice at that time. He said, because other sources of entertainment are not there, people's attention is moving towards social media content creators. And by the time this crisis gets over, the marketing money will start moving from the traditional channels to the social media channels, traditional celebrities to the new age influencers, because they are gaining the mind share of the people sitting at home, which film stars are not able to do now. Why don't you write India's first book on creator economy, in which you cover how this evolution happens, that artists sitting in the remote parts of the country are creating content that's going viral, and they are becoming famous and brands are coming to them. I took that advice seriously, wrote Booming Digital Stars, which became a national bestseller within 3 months because all the social media influencers covered in the book marketed it. And fortunately, IIM Ahmedabad noticed it. So they invited me for a talk that went very well. And fortunately, the Penguin editor was sitting in the audience. And he liked the talk, and he took me for a coffee at the IIM Ahmedabad canteen, got to know about the background, the books that I had written, the course on startup branding that I was teaching at MICA. And he said, why don't you write a playbook on startup branding that will cover even the concepts from the Indian context? What he meant is that in India, still people read the definition of positioning written by Jack Trout and Ulrich probably 40 years back in America. The market is different, marketing channels are different, consumers are different, so definition also has to evolve. Why don't you write everything from the Indian context, because you have some background? So I liked the idea, but it was challenging because writing the new definition of positioning from the Indian context, all these kind of concepts was difficult phase. So the step that I took is that I contacted India's topmost brand experts who have helped creating hundreds of brands, especially the new age ones, and asked them to support me in this cause. Fortunately, all of them agreed and helped me in writing multiple chapters that covers the journey of converting a startup into a trustworthy brand, from chapters like how the categories are created, how culture is created, how product market fit is achieved, and all that.
Well said.
And I also reached out to the founders of India's leading brands to support those concepts with the case studies. Because the unique part of the book was, you have to appreciate one thing about the brand building, that every category is different. Jewelry is a very different category from food. Digital is a very different category. Within food, the meat distribution that Licious does is a very different category from Greek yogurt that Epigami have created an iconic brand. So the fundamentals of becoming a category leader are different. So reaching out to founders, understanding the dynamics of every category, basically created multiple aspects in this book. And I also reached out to India's leading startup founders, startup investors like Kanwaljit Singh of Fireside Ventures, one of the first investors in brands like Yoga Bar, Boat, Mamaearth, Licious, Epigami, Paper Boat, Anand Lunia of India Quotient, one of the first investors in sugar, cosmetics, Rebel Foods kinds of brands.
Very well said.
And understood from them the investors aspect.
Wonderful.
Now what happened that when all this content came together, when all this content came together, it became like a playbook, and Deep Kara sir was very kind to review the book. It took around 2 months, and after that he came back with the powerful words, calling it as a masterclass in startup branding. So.
Wonderful, wonderful. But, I can't hide my happiness, just now, because I never expected a house full. And it is, I think we should give a clap to ourselves. Because it's pretty hot here, but irrespective of the rising popularity, either of you can answer, of, shows like Shark Tank, Startup Awards, Business Podcast. Yet, I personally feel that Indian startups are not treated the way they're done in USA. What could be the reason?
First thing is, I think this show is for anointing Harsh, who is doing a great job. Let's give another clap for Harsh. I mean, that said, I don't think our startups are treated badly. The context is different. Ecosystem is different. Well, when we treat somebody well, we'll give them shawl here. When we treat somebody well, we give something different. We give them iPhone in America. If you went to Davos, they used to give iPad to people, and so on and so forth. The question is, our context is different. Our wave appreciation is different, but I don't think we're treating any more our startups any badly at all. Now, people are proud to be member of a startup community. But I think you have the ground reality, you experience that. So I'm waiting for your thoughts on that.
Okay, so one thing I would say that, as sir also mentioned earlier, the startup market in India, this evolution of startup thing in India, we beat venture capital and all, has started much later as compared to when it started in the US. So that definitely things are picking up. I would like to give credit to the shows like Shark Tank and Business Podcast that ma'am mentioned, that are creating an enthusiasm in youngsters in India about the startup ecosystem and all. Definitely there are challenges, and challenges will always be there. Because I think there is always a learning curve to do something. People will take inspiration, people will start their own journeys, will fail in their own manners, new lessons will come out. Definitely the literature, the kind of literature that available in about the American brands, the stories of inspiration available there, have to come out more in Indian context so that things will improve and change. That's my context.
Let me add to that. In the US, I knew someone called Mark Warner. He was a Harvard Business School student, and the 3 startups he did, they all failed. He used to live in a trailer. Trailer means living in a bus, in a trailer park, which is really the pits of America. He lived in there after being Harvard Business School graduate until he succeeded with a Sprint that was sold for $13 billion. And then he became governor of Virginia and got all the respect and became senator of the US. My point is, even after being a Harvard Business School graduate, when he went for startups, he failed 3 times. As long as he failed, his friends didn't give him the same space he expected. He lived in trailers, but didn't lose his hope, didn't lose his conviction. And finally, when he succeeded, it was a big success. That's one. Second thing, think of it this way. You heard of a company called Tesla. Now, Tesla was not supposed to be really a car-making company, electric car-making company. They're a batteries company, come to think of it. Their technology is battery technology, and everything's a box designed to just run. That's the way they conceived a car, which is different from the way we thought of car, very complex engine. Today, the valuation of Tesla is $1,400 billion, which is more than the sum total of the valuation of every single auto company in the entire world.
Wow.
GM is $38 billion. Ford is $36 billion. Toyota is $40 billion, $45 billion. They are all in that range. And where is Tesla? $1,400 billion. The question is, we have to think about unicorns in valuation, but are they really profitable? Are they meeting other business criteria? Most of my business friends with Harsh Goenka and Mahindra, they keep saying, what is this valuation game going on in the country? And that valuation game has brought us down in the case of Byju's, Educomp in education. You know how much Educomp lost when they shut up? 8,500 crore rupees. Whose money was it? Investors. The 2,000 ed-tech companies in India folded up in the past 2 years. Whose money it was? Investors. Byju's, they lost 200,000 crore rupees. Whose money it was? Investors. And who are these investors? They are not Indian investors. In all these companies, investors from overseas. Our ecosystem is not really our ecosystem. Our ecosystem is created to follow the global market, their licensing, their investments. Somebody is making money by looking at India's story, which sometimes works out, oftentimes doesn't work out. So the challenge is we got to think of how to create the story of Tesla kind, how to think 2 stages beyond. And that's the story we should be talking about.
How
Thank you.
relevant. Very well said.
Thank you.
Actually, I feel that 50 minutes are not enough. We had so much to, share with you all, which could have benefited. But irrespective, I've got a feeler from her. I don't have more than 5 minutes. So a few questions from the audience.
Yes. We'll take 3 questions from the audience.
नहीं अभी तो हम भी थोड़े क्विज कर लें इनसे 2-3 क्वेश्चन
हाँ जी मैम पहले ऑडियंस पूछ लेती हैं फिर हम क्विज कर लेंगे यस
When you say, I'll relay your message. Go ahead.
So further to what you just said, these startups, when I go to all the colleges, incubation centers are already making a lot of sustainable and circular economy products. But if I look into the government, they are not using. Very small example, if I can give, is the bamboo tissue papers, etc. So I think, how can you become the Harsha Bogle to the government so that these products which are actually manufactured by the startups with all the new ideas, considering the SDG goals, are actually mandatorily used by the government departments as well?
Harsh.
Okay. So, I've already started working on that problem. I recently joined.
Yeah, so I think my question is that
Yeah, I think this is working now. So I've already started working on that problem statement map. I'm now heading marketing for T-Hub, which is the world's largest innovation campus and India's largest startup incubator. We work with academia, we work with startups, we work with government also. Create, to identify. Sorry, thank you. Hello. And one of the key, one of the objectives for me in this opportunity is to create market access for innovative ideas coming from startups, coming from academia, coming from research institutes, and create the market for them in the corporates, government spaces and all. So I've started working on this problem.
Yeah,
and
my question was more towards policy decision, more towards the budget I am connecting with. Policy decision has to be there from the government that the product that are being used should be sustainable.
When did the government start the startup movement? Anybody? We are too nascent, still very nascent. So policies are getting made.
Sorry to highlight this, but I was just talking to him. It's only 10% success rate in last 1 year.
No,
And this is one of the biggest reason.
No, the first thing is, are you trying to create a startup ecosystem where you're not just looking at the kind of products you're looking at? That is a different world. That's a business world. I'm talking about startup as we understand in the global context. That's one thing. You are speaking about startup as you understand local context. They're very different stories altogether. That's where you will need government to come in. Has any startup really dependent government? Governments follow them. They don't follow government. We have to get onto that system where governments follow what you create. That's what the issue is.
One. Thank
Well,
you.
he will be Harsha Bhogle, but we also need the players Virat Kohli's.
Next question, please.
Hello. Hi, sir. My name is Jay Parashar. My question is, India started from primary sector and suddenly it shifted to service sector. That is the problem we face. We skipped that manufacturing wala part, business fields mein, theek hai? Which is the exception India is facing. If we see the example of China, they move from primary to manufacturing and then service sector. But still the date, when we see the startups which are coming from India, we look up to Ola, we look up to Shadi.com. These are the startups which are service sector based startup. Hai na? And we don't have, and even if there are startups which are manufacturing related, so as sir you have mentioned, they do white labeling in their initial stage. If we take the example of Micromax or Boat, na? So there are startups in this space sector which we often not talks, and there are startup related to manufacturing जिसको हम इतना appeal नहीं करते हैं. So what is the problem with the mentality of we as in following these or we as a youngster जो हम किसको देखें if we want to invest in the manufacturing wala startup?
You see, hello. We have somehow a misplaced notion that the value lies in manufacturing. What happens is, why is China the manufacturer of the world? Because America started a journey in China in 1971. America groomed China, nurtured China, mentored China, invested in China. Whatever you see in China is made possible by the American mentoring of China in manufacturing context. China thought 50 years, their thinking was way ahead. They began in the first 1971 to train 1 crore people, those who went beyond the capability we had. The baseline of China's institutions is what is our top line of IITs. Our institutions beyond IITs and IIMs are not really ready to even understand anything, come to think of it. They're certificate distributors for some pennies or rupees. So that's a business. Best example I can give you, Professor Yashpal was, I think, Education Commission's chairman sometime. 2008 or 9, I remember a conversation with him. He said, "Bhai, other day I met somebody from Punjab. He said he is going to start 4 universities. So I asked him why. He said, I have 4 sons. How is that for a change? So universities became a business like a parchun ki dukan, or a small time. But university is not supposed to be that. They distribute certificates. And what is the biggest business in India which is surviving in education? Anybody?
I would like to just ask you one thing, which is, I think, relevant for all of us here. Our banking system absolutely has an opposite viewpoint towards entrepreneurs as compared to US. So the lending is also very different, and rather I should call it for startups, MSMEs, and so what is your say? Because this is important, banking.
Look, let the banks be banks. Banks will be banks. They should remain the banks. Because if banks behave like investors, it will not, because they function under a whole different regime of laws, regulation, etc. And their function is different. They are not investors. Investor invests in future. Bank is for today. Those who want something for today, they will go to bank. Those who think of tomorrow, they will go to investors. And that's what the difference is. And sometimes people think banks should be financing businesses. They finance business which is running today, operational business. They don't finance a business which is going to be created for tomorrow. That's for investors. They risk and so on and so forth. So I was talking manufacturing. Manufacturing is not good. Total capital of manufacturing or business required is about $15 trillion. That's maximum. You can't cut into that. India can, because India is a very small economy of 3 trillion, 3.5 trillion. So they could. But you cannot compete with China in manufacturing. In fact, I know a number of Indian manufacturers, they folded up their business. They say it's cheaper and profitable for me to go and get things manufactured in China, and despite all the challenges, import it here and sell it. So economics has changed in the world economy of manufacturing. If you go that path, it's a difficult journey. It's not a gainful journey. So why would you go there?
Well said. Thank you so much, sir and ma'am.
I know we got the red signal.
No, no,
To just keep quiet.
I really don't want you people to be out.
So finally,
Yes.
let's show the candles to them.
No, no, one second. Wait. We are now closing the question answer thing. We have a quiz also, sir.
Yeah.
Yes. So there's a quiz question which I would now ask, which is related to the topic today. And whoever knows the answer, please raise your hands. Our volunteers will come up to you and then you please say the answer. Don't say it without raising your hands. The quiz is very simple, that the term unicorn startup refers to a company that has. Don't say it, yes. Our moderator or Sir Satish, sir, you can decide who has to answer. No. Don't say the right answer. Don't say the right. Yes.
You, the one in blue.
Yes,
Wonderful,
that's
wonderful.
correct. That's correct.
I think we can give them.
Yes. So I would request sir who answered it correctly to please come up on the stage. And we would request you to come up on the stage as well, because you answered the 2016 answer correctly.
Everybody who believes he answered correctly can give me your name and address. You'll get something from me.
Come and tell your names. I'm sorry, the one in grey. Come. He's the hero of the day. Can we show the candles now?
So, ma'am, 1 minute. Yes.
The candles are for all.
And now as we reach the end of this session, thank you so much, sir, ma'am. And now I would request our co-founder member of the society to please come up on the stage, Brigadier Sanjay Agrawal ji. Please come up on the stage for the felicitation ceremony of our esteemed panels. Please put a round of applause for our Brigadier Sanjay Agrawal ji, because he has been a support for us today. And I think from last 2 days, I should say.
So like a bad penny, I'm back.
Yes. So this is Padma Shri Bhil Artist Bhuri Bai creation artwork, which is for BLF 2025, depicting the connection between nature, earth, the human being and the environment, and the circularity inherent and imperative to our existence. To our incredible speakers, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, creativity and insights. Now we can play the clip which ma'am gave. Please play the clip which ma'am gave for the ending. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, our speakers. And this is,
Thank you.
That's a small candle. Just watch it.
Here you are, sir. You can take the packed one and give her back the unpacked one. So help you carry it.
ऐसा भी होता है.
ये हमारे ऑर्गेनाइजर्स ने इन्होंने बहुत मेहनत की है.
Very good. Well done.
कहते हैं ना हाथी के दांत खाने के
And I think we should thank the audience for bearing with us.
When she said it's a house full and we should thank ourselves, मैं कहने वाला था मैं चुप रह गया. Thank the audience.
yes.
Here's a clap for the audience.
Please clap for yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, the esteemed panelists, Satish ji, Harsh ji, and our very own Rashmi ji. This was a wonderful, wonderful session today with us. And as I see Paritosh ji coming towards the stage because it's next session time. So ladies and gentlemen,